Russia sends 60 tons of coronavirus aid to US. On April 1, Russia sent the US medical equipment to aid in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. This comes after the US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed Putin's offer in a phone call on March 30. Trump has been dealing with a shortage of personal protective equipment and ventilators in the US. A Russian military transport plane carrying the delivery was sent to New York's John F. Kennedy Airport on April 1. According to US News, the US is normally known to offer aid to embattled countries, not accept it. Kremlin spokesman reportedly said that Trump gratefully accepted this humanitarian aid. The US State Department stated that the phone call between Trump and Putin led the former to agree to purchase medical equipment from Russia. The US Federal Emergency Management Agency was handed the 60 tons of equipment after their arrival. The goods included masks, respirators, and ventilators, among other equipment. The State Department, through their spokeswoman Morgan Ortagus, explained that although the US is a generous and reliable contributor to crisis response all over the world, the country cannot do it alone. Ortagus said that this is a time to work together to overcome a common enemy that threatens the lives of all of us. According to her, Russia and the US have offered each other humanitarian assistance in the past and will undoubtedly do so again in the future. Although the US received the equipment, they will still examine the items in accordance with the US Food and Drug Administration's quality guidelines. On March 30, Trump told reporters that China sent the US some stuff and other countries sent them things that he was very surprised at. Trump also asked South Korean President Moon Jae-in for medical equipment and testing kits. The Washington Post reported that Russian analysts have found US's need for Russian aid astounding, considering that the US is the most powerful nation on Earth. Russia sent Italy 15 planes full of medical equipment and health experts, with trucks that said, "From Russia with love." Many Russian analysts agree that the help Russia is offering is part of a propaganda coup, showing that even the best democratic nations are suffering, and Russia is possibly better than the US.
When the coronavirus was first detected in Siberia at the end of January, Russia moved quickly to restrict access along its southern border. Last month, air travel restrictions and train service suspensions followed as the virus spread to Russia's western neighbors. But the question of how Russia, a country of 144 million people, has managed to contain COVID-19 to fewer than 3,000 cases has puzzled specialists in the West. Although official data show Russian testing almost to 500,000, nearly as many as South Korea, Western critics are suspicious that the Russian government is underreporting its figures. How is Russia handling the pandemic? I'm pleased to be joined via Skype with Nikolai Makotkin, an expert at Russian International Affairs Council in Moscow. Sir, welcome to The Point. So, as I said, people are saying, let's address the elephant in the room, if there is one. The Washington Post has run 2 stories in the past week suggesting that Russian authorities have been fudging the numbers. Well, it is odd that the paper's own reporting admits that the World Health Organization has said everything appears in order. Russia's relatively low number of confirmed cases, fewer than Ireland, is still striking. So help us understand the situation. If the cases do rise as they seem to be, is Russia prepared for the worst, though?
Good afternoon, Mrs. Lee. As for the Washington Post allegations, I think they're pretty much groundless because, as you mentioned, there have been several hundred tests which Russia already made, and World Health Organization confirmed that the statistics is more or less accurate. But the reason why Russia has so few cases so far, I think, is that we that the pandemic came to us later than to the other countries, and that we didn't reach the peak yet. So the government and the health care officials mentioned that we expect a peak this or next week, and we need to see the stats, how the situation will develop. So far, it's been growing quite rapidly. Now it's almost 3,000 cases, but the dynamic is not that bad actually, because yesterday it was 500 new cases, now it's 400 something, so it's not too bad. But we hope that we can contain the pandemic until the weather improves, and it will naturally help.
How much is this pandemic featured in the daily discussions, both in the government, in the parliament, or among the general public? Are they taking enough measures to prevent the spread of the virus?
Well, of course, it occupies the minds of everyone in Russia so far. I think now it's hard to find any news piece which is not dedicated to coronavirus. People are speaking about it between themselves, and the government keeps informing people. I think, in general, people are content so far with the government actions because the policy is more or less efficient. What is concerning people is that, first of all, this week we have been put on self-isolation mode, most of the big cities, and people are not used to that situation. Of course, it's uncomfortable for them, especially for the old people. But another concern is for the business, of course, because a lot of businesses were put on hold, and they're afraid that if the situation lasts, that might affect them. A lot of them might close, actually.
Okay, let me bring in our Chinese expert, Professor Su Hao, Director of the Center for Strategic and Peace Studies at China Foreign Affairs University. Professor Su, thank you very much for joining us. How do you look at the question of transparency raised by Western journalists or press on the numbers coming out of Russia? How do China look at these numbers?
Well, actually, comparing China and Western Europe, the number of infected disease cases in Russia still is much fewer. So some comments from the Western mass media say that it's not real number. But I think that's comparing the Chinese case or the situation, I think it's understandable that in Russia, or in particular in Moscow, so far the effective case number is not too much bigger. But the recent days, the increased number has been dramatically. So I think that this is the truth, that the Russians, the case already had been worse. So the reason why, just recent week, this coming week, Russia's government and Putin's president already is make very strict measure against the virus. So far, it is efficient, right, in the city of Moscow. And all the people, all the citizens had been quarantined within their home. And, the citizens of the Russia so far had been supportive to the Russian government.
Mr. Bakotkin, let me ask you about the economic, the financial impact of this pandemic. I mean, Russia's economy was hit by a severe crisis a couple of years ago, and there are reports saying that the Russian economy is already rocked by the coronavirus outbreak. So is Russia prepared to weather the coming storm that many are predicting?
Well, the truth is, of course, that the situation is not easy at all. The coronavirus pandemic came in a very unfortunate time because the oil prices dropped dramatically earlier this month, the past month in March. And that affects the Russian economy quite a lot because that is our big export component. And together with the restrictive measures, of course, it affects the economy. Our currency deteriorated quite a lot. But so far, the government is taking measures to support the business, and there are depending on the point of view, some people expect that there will be more demand after pandemic. Well, the quarantine measures will stop, since people will continue to go to the shops, the restaurants, and that will have to relaunch the economy. But of course, the supportive measures will be needed probably the whole year. And we expect a negative GDP growth, as many other countries, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Well, the world is kind of expecting quite a big recession. Professor Su, China and Russia are very close as partners. So what kind of interaction? I understand on February the 5th, a Russian team together with materials have arrived in Wuhan, and China also reciprocated with assistance to Russia. What kind of collaboration, cooperation has been going on between these two countries?
Yes, China and Russia will have the comprehensive strategic partnership, so have a very good cooperative relation with each other, in particular in this anti-virus war. So, as you mentioned, that's at the beginnings of the outbreak of Chinese coronavirus disease, Russia already sent their medical team to China, and they will have joint work together, not only just the antivirus, but also will try to create some kind of the vaccine for the long term anti this coronavirus. So far, the Russia already developed quite well. So I think that in the coming months, China and Russia could work together and to try to develop their efficient antivirus of the vaccine. So that I think that could be successful in the coming months.
Okay. Thank you so much. We're going to leave it there. Nikolai Mark-Kotkin joining us from Moscow and Professor Su Hao here in Beijing. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Download the application called CGTN to watch the show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.
As far as photo ops go, this seemed like a good one for Vladimir Putin. He put on a bright yellow hazmat suit and gas mask and toured Moscow's main infectious disease hospital with top coronavirus doctor Denis Protsenko. But not before he shook Protsenko's hand, rode in a small elevator together, and spent a lot of time not practicing social distancing. Today, Protsenko acknowledged he tested positive, sending Russian state TV into a frenzy. It's around everyone now. It's even around the president. All of those who are supposed to save us from corona, exclaimed the host. It's unclear if Putin is now in isolation. He's only been seen since alone in a teleconferencing room where he ordered Russians to quit ignoring directives to stay home. Just 2 days ago, Moscow parks were full of people having large group picnics and barbecues, which prompted the city's mayor to order a near lockdown of the capital. We're scared, this woman told our crew. I hope to God people listen and stay inside. Independent Russian journalist Denis Strelkov says the capital can likely cope with the deluge of cases, but other regions won't be so lucky.
If we imagine that we are going to have a this virus all over Russia, in every region, it's going to be not just bad, it's going to be way worse than the United States. There is no really, there is no effective system of medical care.
But even with the coronavirus stalking the highest levels of the Kremlin, Putin's administration still managed to seize an opportunity for a propaganda win. Russia has already sent plane loads of humanitarian aid to China and Italy, and today Putin offered help to Donald Trump, which he apparently accepted. Chris Brown, CBC News, Vancouver.
It's a rare case of cooperation between Russia and Ukraine. A 900-kilometer train journey between Moscow and Kiev and a return trip the other way. It allowed an exchange of citizens from each country who wanted to come home. It was their last chance before borders and airports were closed.
As there are a lot of Ukrainians here, I'm sure there were also Russians in Ukraine. People have families in the other country, so this evacuation is a normal process.
President Vladimir Putin had said on March 18th that Russia had the spread of the virus under control. Now the country is changing tack, acknowledging a major virus spike is coming. By the middle of last week, the government was sealing borders and cancelling international flights. The mayor of Moscow closed all restaurants, cafes, bars and shops, initially for 1 week. So far, there's been no mandatory lockdown of cities that we're seeing elsewhere.
Does the state do enough? I might not know everything, but judging for what I know, we need to do more in terms of testing. According to my rough calculations, we need to conduct up to 20,000 tests a day to know the big picture. Currently, much less is being done.
There's also concern about the impact of the pandemic on the Russian economy. It's already under sanctions imposed by the European Union and the United States over its actions in Ukraine. At the G20 video conference of world leaders last week, Putin asked for a freeze of sanctions, as well as an international approach to fighting the virus.
It is no less important during the period of crisis to create green channels which would be free of any trade wars or sanctions, for mutual supplies of medical goods, food, equipment and technology.
And there is another factor for the Russian leader. The country was due to vote on April the 22nd on a package of constitutional amendments that could extend his rule. Fearing a lack of confidence in the government and the economy as a result of a COVID-19 outbreak, that vote, like many aspects of life in affected countries, has been put on hold for now. Francis Collins, TRT World.
While the world buckled from the COVID-19 crisis and continues to, Russia for weeks appeared to downplay the threat, even giving aid to other nations. Well, that got us curious here at ABC News Live. How? But as we started to report out the situation on the ground, things rapidly started to change. Patrick Reevell has this report.
As the coronavirus ravaged Italy, there was a surprising arrival. The Russian military sent to help with disinfection efforts. A diplomatic coup for Moscow, and one meant to show Russia has things under control. But at home, Russians have faced an uncomfortable question. Can they trust their government to tell the truth? For weeks, Russia's coronavirus numbers were an outlier. Despite claiming to do more tests than almost any other country, Russia's percentage of reported cases was initially very low, just 0.2%, the second lowest in the world. The cause was unclear. Some blamed poor testing, others said early border closures had helped. Officials from Vladimir Putin down said things were better than elsewhere. But in a country where authorities have a long history of hiding bad news, suspicions of a cover-up quickly appeared.
The government is lying about coronavirus, about the quantity of cases, about the absence of protection.
Last week, during a televised exchange, Moscow's mayor finally acknowledged infections were higher than the official number. After that, things shifted, Putin donning a hazmat suit to visit a Moscow hospital. The doctor he met with now testing positive for coronavirus, a testament perhaps to a rapidly escalating situation. Moscow, a city of 13 million, now the center of Russia's epidemic as cases reach over 3,500 nationwide. The government telling Russia to lock down.
All measures necessary in this situation should be taken. Even if those not involved into the problem consider them a bit excessive for Russia today. But as they say, God helps those who help themselves.
People ordered to stay at home, stores shuttered, streets deserted.
I went to a pharmacy to buy a mask. There's a shortage. This is it. I'm going straight back home now.
And Russia is turning to authoritarian technology to enforce the lockdown. Moscow has one of the largest facial recognition surveillance systems in the world. It's now being used to check people are staying home. Artem Kukharenko developed part of the technology.
The system performs real-time analytics of incoming video data.
Last week, Moscow was able to find more than 500 people who violate the quarantine. So we can imagine how much harm these people could do to the city and to all other people.
But there are fears the government's efforts to maintain a strong facade hide a much shakier reality. Anastasia Vasilyeva heads a doctors' campaign group. She's a staunch critic of Putin, but she says she's in touch with doctors across the country who say medical supplies are severely lacking.
The situation is awful, really. They are sewing the masks themselves. They have no masks, no respirators, no glasses, so no costumes to protect them. The situation is terrible all across Russia. In Moscow and St. Petersburg, in big cities, the situation is not so bad, but also we have no enough equipment, not enough protection.
As in China, Russia is racing to build hospitals, preparing for the inevitable influx of cases. And as elsewhere, Russians are wondering, how bad will it get? Patrick Reevell, ABC News, Dublin, Ireland.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.